So hey everyone, it's really good to see so many familiar faces. Today I'm going to talk about Songmap, which is a Spotify visualization tool that I've been working on. So to start off, by show of hands, how many people here use Spotify? Awesome. All right. And how many are premium subscribers? All right. Pretty popular tool. Awesome. Me too. So I'm going to briefly cover how I got here, how I worked with the data, how I worked with the visuals, and then I am excited to show you a little demo. So for as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated by the idea of visualizing my music preferences. I would listen to music when I work or when I write code, and when I find like an artist or a song that I really like, I would branch off and explore everything by that artist or something similar to that song, and I would visualize that as a sort of branch from my main listening that day, and then I would come back to it and continue. Early on, I stumbled on this thing called Songmap, which is still up there. It's a really cool tool that lets you plug in an artist and shows you a course-directed graph of other artists around. And I absolutely love this. This was one of the things that encouraged me to start coding. I didn't know anything about data visualization, but I loved the tactile experience of like feeling the songs that I'm listening to. So actually, one of the very first things I ever coded was this little canvas thing where I would click on a circle and it would point to other circles. But there are two things that really scared me. One is I had no idea how to draw on screen, and this felt woefully deficient. And two, even scarier, I had no idea how to map relationships between songs. So I knew I somehow wanted to position songs in space based on musical characteristics, but I wasn't really sure how to do that. And then came Spotify. So most of you know what Spotify is, music listening platform. But in 2014, they acquired a little startup called Nest, which is a music intelligence data. Somebody here from Nest? That'd be kind of amazing. So it's a music intelligence platform that allowed Spotify to create these amazing personalized playlists, and most notably power the Discover Weekly playlist that many of you probably use. So this was really, really cool. I now knew that I would be able to use the data, so I just needed to take care of the visualization. So 4 weeks before RC ended, which is a point that I think a few of you are at now, I was planning on some very responsible project that would help me with my job search when it occurred to me that I've always wanted to build this song now. So I talked to a few people about it. They encouraged me, and I decided to just jump into it and build it. So the first thing I did was signed up to speak at Localhost, and the second thing I did was buy domain names. So now I had some skin in the game. So this was the kind of data that Spotify would give me, and this was like the secret key ingredient. Most of these are from 0 to 1, with the exception of things like tempo, but they would, for every track, give me things like danceability, which is how danceable a track is, or energy, which is the perceptual measure of intensity, or valence, which is how musically positive a track is, so how happy or sad it is. And this was really cool. So I put together a little app, and interestingly, song metadata, like the name and artist, lived in a separate place than the analysis for the song, which was a different place than the genre, which Spotify wouldn't give you for a song, but would give you for an album or for the artist. So my server would make 3 API calls, concatenate the data, and hand it off to my client for data visualization. And so this was the very first draft. I would just grab the songs. You can see I've got some sliders there to tweak what kind of songs I'd be looking for, and then I just display them as cards. I was using what's called client credential flow authorization, which would give me the data without making the client sign it, which is really cool. However, Spotify is really careful about how they hand off music, so they would give me a 30-second preview for some tracks, in this case the tracks in blue. So most of the tracks, no preview, no way to actually hear the song. And if you were here a month and a half ago when I presented my first draft of this, there was no way to actually listen to these things. So to actually hear the songs for more than 30 seconds, I needed to implement a different kind of authorization, and then Spotify doesn't actually let you play most things in the browser, or it seemed way too complicated at the time. So I resorted to using the Spotify app to actually play the music. And so what would happen is the client would ping the server with a track, the server would ping Spotify with my API data, and then Spotify would trigger playback in the client's Spotify client. So that's roughly how that worked. Next up, a little bit about the visuals. Initially, my plan was to use D3, which is a popular data visualization library. I love the way force-directed graphs look, so I tried making one, and they're really pretty, but I had no idea what was going on, and my time was coming to an end here, and so there was a natural trade-off between learning and building. So I knew if I just got something on the screen, if I could just visualize songs in some way, I'd find my way forward. So I resorted to good old Canvas, and this was one of my first drafts. This is effectively a graph of valence, which is how happy or sad a song is, versus energy. And these are all the songs that I would pull from the Spotify API. However, I love the idea of doing this in D3, so I jumped into 3JS, which fortunately wasn't as hard as D3 was. So this was my first experience playing around in 3D. Similarly to Canvas, I positioned songs in space, but now it's 3D space. And I ran into some problems that felt kind of familiar, but still super challenging. So for example, I had to figure out things like lighting. This shadow effect is really cool, but then I'd rotate the camera and my stars would disappear because they weren't lit anymore. And also I had to learn a whole bunch about how cameras are operated, because you can move them in 3D space. You can also rotate them, and if you're looking at a thing and you rotate a camera, it's no longer looking at the thing, you actually have to orbit it. And the truth is, I actually didn't figure out most of this stuff because I had to make trade-offs and decided I would focus on visualizing the data and then navigating it later. But it was a really fun adventure. So this was my next draft. This looks very similar to the Canvas example, except for it's actually in 3D. And when I show you the demo, you'll be able to see that this is actually 3D space, and then you can see the lines are like your listening history. So I was now traveling in 3D space from song to song, which was pretty cool. So enough talk, I'd love to show you the demo. For the demo, I'm actually gonna swing around so I can look at the screen. This here. So we're starting out with a seed song, which is Starlight by Muse, which sounds something like this. And then Spotify is going to give us 20 more songs. Pause this. Spotify is going to give us 20 more songs that are recommended to people who like Starlight. And if I here zoom in a little bit, if I hover over them on the bottom right corner, wait, bear with me. There it is. In the bottom right corner, you can see what the songs are, and if you click on them, it'll play the next song, and so on and so forth. If you leave this thing alone, if you kind of just keep skipping songs, it'll keep picking stars that are closest to you and playing those. And if it runs out of stars at certain points, it'll get you more recommendations. So we are now in 3D space. It's a little hard to tell, but you'll be able to see that in a second. Our x-axis is valence, our y-axis, I believe, is energy. So we can keep doing this, hopefully, as I zoom in and out. Bear with me, I'm still a little wonky with the controls, but you can now see that we're in 3D space. So it starts rotating. I'm actually going to refresh this so I can orient myself, because rotating around is a little wonky. But, so, okay. I listened to a lot of Starlight over the last I actually listened to, like, because I had the same seed song, I listened to the same set of recommendations, and so there's like 5 or 6 songs out there that I never want to hear again. But it's okay, that's kind of cool. But we want more control. So, how do we want to do this? So, if we like a certain song, if we keep listening, and there's a certain song that we really like, let's say this one. Zoom in over here a little bit. Here we go. If we really like this song, we could say, I like this song, and then these musical characteristics are going to be the basis for future recommendations. And that's going to continue as long as we keep requesting recommendations, they'll be requested around this song. The other thing that we can do is we can take manual control and say, well, okay, these are kind of like very energetic. What if we want to bring the energy down and the danceability down because it's the end of the day and we want to listen to something a little slower? Well, if we zoom out, right now we're visualizing valence and energy, but actually we can visualize danceability along the y-axis, and so now this looks a little different. And if we request some less danceable songs, we now get some songs here. And if we start listening to these, they should be slower. So that's another thing that you can do. Thanks for bearing with me. As I mentioned, the controls are still taking a little bit of time. Yeah, if we start listening here, we have a song called Growing Old, so it's gonna be slower and less danceable, sadly. So that's a thing that you can do. And then, I think I did this before, but every time we request a song, we actually move forward on the z-axis, so we are getting depth. So if I zoom in, let me see, and start rotating again, we're actually in 3D space. So that was kind of cool. I thought this was pretty close to my original vision, and I really liked it. So that's the demo. Thanks a lot. So as you can tell, there's a lot to be done. So next steps are I want to figure out how to better use the z-axis. My idea the entire time was to create planes for genres so that you could jump from genre to genre within songs with the same musical characteristics. So if you have two songs with equal tempo and equal energy levels but in different genres, you should be able to make that jump as well as jump to similar songs within the same genre. Clearly I need some intuitive camera controls. It would be really cool to have an import-export function, which should be totally doable. So when you're done listening, you can pull everything into a Spotify playlist, or alternatively, you can import a Spotify playlist and have that visualized whichever way you want. It'd be really great to have song paths. When you branch off from a song, you can see an individual path. And then finally, I have this nice domain name that I bought, but haven't actually deployed yet. So in the next 2 weeks, that'll be up there. And that's my presentation. Thanks.